Hello and welcome to Turning Looks, a beauty and makeup podcast. I am your host, Darren, and welcome back to a very special Fashion Month episode. This month we have the incredible queen whose face card never declines, Miss Dylan on. But before we get into that chat, I want to run past some of the makeup trends that we've seen over Fashion Month, specifically at Paris Couture, London, and New York Fashion Weeks. Milan is happening at the time we are recording this, so unfortunately can't include them. But see what kind of makeup trends we saw on the runways and potentially what that means for the year to come before we get into the chat with Dylan, where we talk about it a little bit more and get their opinions as a ex-fashion student, a fashion graduate, I should say, and a drag performer. So without any further ado, let's get into looking at some of these trends. So starting off with Couture Fashion Week, we saw a rainbow of reds, different shades of red lipsticks on Chanel's runway. One big thing that we saw across all the fashion weeks is brows, but specifically at Couture, we saw strange brows, bold brows, and no brows. Dior, Valley, and Armani. These, idea of strange and unique different kind of brows was really at play. We also saw clean skin with pops of interest, whether that be like a smoky eye versus clean skin or bold brow versus clean skin. Again, this was at Dior and Armani. And we also saw soft sculpted skins, not harsh contour, but very soft sculpted skin at Schiaparelli, again, Valley, and Murad as well. So, not too many trends going on there and kind of things that we're seeing already in the world. But brows are a big feature across all Fashion Week and this kind of unique play on them, as well as these pops of color. Going on to New York Fashion Week, again, bold makeup was seen a lot here with bold lips and bold bases at Alice and Olivia and Melky. Also, excuse if I say any of these fashion houses' names wrong. I'm also terrible for doing that. Again, we saw pops of color, especially in like the inner corners of eyes and lips at Strada, Christopher John Rogers, Christian Kawan. We also saw 90s grunge and indie sleaze with smoky eyes, cool tones, Anna Sui, Kim Shu. Again, this is something we saw in London as well. So 90s grunge is still very much here to play from the last few seasons as well. Animal prints also spotted up a few times, or kind of animal incorporation into makeup, whether that be spots, like spotted leopard print kind of things, or feathers. Again, Strada and Tom Brown really kind of played with these kind of features. And then we saw shimmer in strange places, whether that be glittery lips, pops of shimmer on the eyelids in fun and unique colors. Marc Jacobs did this, Lata did this, Christopher John Rogers did this as well. So again, we're seeing these kind of similar trends of strange colors in places that maybe we're not usually seeing them, frosted lips coming back, and then like animal prints and stuff. And then matte 90s looks. We saw that across a lot of fashion designers, but matte eyeshadows, matte complexions, which is interesting, seeing a rise in like kind of more velvet and blurring complexion products coming up at the moment. We're seeing this in the runways too. Ulia Johnson had this, Carti, Kim Shu, and Luar also had these takes on matte. What we're seeing a lot, especially in New York Fashion Week, was a juxtaposition, which is really reflecting our times. While we're seeing recession core and clean girl makeup a lot on the runways, we're also seeing the reverse of that in places, as we always do in the Zeitgeist, where actually bold and over the top makeup is also being shown. And this is something Terry Barber kind of spoke a lot about in a few interviews. And lastly, for London Fashion Week, again, we're seeing more pops of color, whether that be bold lashes, colorful eyebrows, strange colors on lips and bold lips. We saw this at Harris Reed, Tom Roche, Mark Fast. Again, we're seeing that across the different kind of runways here. These pops of color, bare skin, and then a pop of something bright. Little things to catch your eye of interest, but not completely all over the place or all over the top. We saw a lot of vinyl lips too. Toleo Coca, Alewali, and Fashion East all did vinyl lips. Euphoric eyes and euphoria in the eyes, rhinestone studded lips, beaded brows, pastel liners. We saw a lot of this on Simone Roche's runways. So yeah, this idea of, playing with that kind of euphoria vibe and taking it further and the new ways we're kind of doing that. Unique and interesting things that we're actually using as makeup. Contrasting to New York Fashion Week, we saw glowy glass light skin a lot on the runways in the UK. Amelia Wickstein, Roscada and Ermedem, Chet Lowe and Daria all did these kind of glass glowy skin, which looks really good on the runway And actually, we see a lot of time people in everyday life kind of really loving that kind of glowy, glassy skin too. And again, otherworldly brows, we saw a lot in London Fashion Week too, whether that be bleached brows, over the top brows, bushy brows, fun colored brows. A few different designers all did this and played with the brows as a focal point or disguising it as a focal point, which then in turn made it a focal point. Very interesting to see this kind of play on eyebrows at the moment. And I'm saying that partly because it's an interest I have for myself, that I playing with my eyebrows a lot at the moment with them being bleached. So seeing that this is kind of a trend is also interesting to me. But then we also saw some like toned down, subtly subversive kind of makeup as well on the runway. So whether that be like a toned down lips and eyes, Renaissance beauty, and it's like youthful romance. We saw at SS Daily, Annie Ibiza. We also saw Victorian blush at Bora Art School. Again, so this kind of like not grotesque makeup, but makeup that kind of makes you question and think, not makeup just to be beautiful, but actually submersive and a little bit different, a little bit maybe yucky almost. We also saw some 60s glam, which is the opposite to a lot of the soft natural makeup we're seeing, but at Richard Quinn, yeah, 60s kind of glam's coming into play with like colorful eyeshadow, these kind of bold eyes kind of as being a focal point of interest. As well as this, we saw 90s soft grunge, sleaze, goth kind of looks. It's still here across, again, both London and New York. Cool tones, lived in, non-Instagrammable makeup. So we saw that at Dreaming Ellie, Mark Fast, Cine Goring, Gupta as well. All these kind of, this grungy kind of makeup. I love that makeup. I'm glad it's still here. But are we tired of seeing it on the runways now? Can we be doing something different on the runways? I'm not saying that we should be doing those things, but it's been done now and it's been done a lot. I mean, I like seeing it and I like seeing all the different takes on it. It's always inspiring to me because it's the makeup I like to do on myself. But we've seen it for a few years now. But that's a quick stop tour of some of the trends and standout makeup kind of styles and aesthetics that we saw across these 3 different runways. As you can see, I think there's this almost going against traditional beauty norms is still a thing, especially even with this like 90s grunge, the kind of yucky makeup, the weird brows. It's kind of like, okay, how can we be submersive with beauty at the moment? How can we not just do this standard beauty, the clean girl aesthetic, the glowy skin, even the high glam matte foundations? We're seeing that a lot, but we're also seeing it. We're also seeing the opposite of that too. And how can we be submersive? How can we have a point of view here? How can we do something that's actually beauty, but not traditional beauty? And that kind of juxtaposition is very telling of the times that we're in. Now, with that being said, let's get into the chat with Dylan, where we can kind of delve into this a little bit more and explore some of these themes and topics a little bit more. How are you? Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm here in my humble abode. And yes, I'm not with you, but I'm with you in spirit. Actually, my dick is up your ass as we speak. You just can't see. Welcome to Fashion Photo Review.
Oh, God, yes. Painted with Dylan.
Painted with Raven. Tell me.
So first question, getting right into it. How would you describe your drag makeup aesthetic in 3 words?
I would describe it as basic, simple, and cunt, really. I really am not doing anything new. I'm just going with my features. I used to do a lot, and then I realized that I have features and I should just go for it and not do too much. I think less is more sometimes. Sometimes a lot more is necessary, but for me specifically.
You just paint that imaginary dot at the back of your head.
Yes. The great words of flesh. I paint imagining this dot here and I just go for it. Actually, I don't snatch that much. I actually go inwards rather than outwards because I don't know. Maybe I should take some lessons of makeup. I don't know. Maybe my face card is starting to decline.
I guess like while you're young, you don't need to paint going up and outwards, but as your skin starts to sag, you might need to start doing that at some point.
Yeah, or tape will do. I don't know. You know better about looking old. What would you do, perhaps?
I do not look old, thank you very much. I've had a lot of work done to look this ugly.
Welcome back to Disney Channel.
So what was your journey like developing your signature drag look? Obviously, you just said that you went through from doing the most to now kind of figuring out actually working with your features.
I think at first it was more like, oh, I can wear makeup, I can put on a wig, and that was just like a gift in and of itself, not to get sappy. And then the more I do it, I used to be very camp, more like this, like wear a lot of pink and be very. And then I discovered that I'm a woman and I look like a woman, so I should I actually stopped doing drag and I'm just serving women and I'm a woman really. So I think it went into that. But I think drag in general is going into that clean girl aesthetic. I think everything is sort of cyclical. So we've done the 2016, the drag was like that as well. And now we're all evolving to more of a womanhood because the dolls are the best, really. So we just want to emulate dolls because they're the fucking deities of society. But yeah, and maybe that's why it's triggering to people because they don't know what to think when they see us drag queens specifically because dolls are not drag queens.
But here's a question. But like, yeah, what does dolls mean to you? Because I feel like it means something different to everyone, and I feel like the word kind of is different to what it used to
Yeah,
mean.
a doll is a trans woman. That's a doll. We drag queens borrow sometimes without permission the term doll. I've been called a doll gracefully by Mother Joelle, and Joelle has asked me once, trans icon, if I was a doll. And since then, she said I'm doll adjacent. So I could never, I took that as, my, as a compliment. But I don't call myself a doll because I don't think it's my word to use. But sometimes I do feel, and the lines cross, and I do feel doll-like in the utmost respect. I just don't feel like it's my place to call myself a doll, but I do get the feeling, which is privileged, to feel like a doll in the glamorous times. But being a doll is much more than looking beautiful and looking goddess-like. I think dolls go through a lot, and it's not our place to use the word. If that makes sense.
Period. Love that. Love it. Thank you for clearing that up. Who or what are your biggest makeup inspirations? Any particular artists, eras, icons, RuPaul?
I would say I used to have a lot of screenshots of Aquaria. She is really transformative. I think her face is always looking different, and what she does is beyond. I think it's artistry. I look a lot to Alice Atlantis as well, their technique and what they do. And we've recently become friends. I'm very excited about that. And also James Mack is one of my good sisters, and he's painted my face, so I think I take from him as well. But I think the more I do, to me, the more I know what I like. So I will take inspo in that sense, it's product inspo. But for me, it's more about finding who I am. What do I want to, what does my face, what do I want it to look like, essentially? I always observe, like, flesh is beautiful, bones is beautiful, and there's a amazing, like, Richard Energy is a drag king that paints beautifully. And for me, it's about, I observe a lot of what they do, and I think, and what can I take? What can I learn? Not take, but what can I learn from people who have great makeup? And does it apply to me? Juno Birch is someone who is always blue, but never, her face never cracks. She's never has a crack in her face or something. So I will observe these things and think, what can I do to be on that level of not cracking or anything, but not necessarily copy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No trademark infringement.
Well, I did think of painting myself blue tonight, but something to think on. No, I do think I really am not reinventing the wheel. It's a cut crease and a dream. But I think it's the attitude and, whatever.
The personality you bring to it.
Yeah.
Do you think the UK drag scenes influence your approach to like beauty and style? And by extension, even that with the London scene, has that kind of, the more you've got involved into like the London drag scene, has that kind of changed how you think about makeup and do your makeup and stuff too?
I think no. I think with the London drag scene, I started drag in London. No, what makeup wise and looks wise is Instagram. That's changed, which can be trickled down to London drag scene. But I think it's online content influences my looks. But what London drag scene has brought me is the attitude towards drag, how to value drag, what does drag mean to me, and what drag is in general. And that's more important than the looks. And I think there's great people I've met along the way, from, two Brewers queens to Heaven queens to the divine drag artists. It's usually like the people that I've met in different scenes of London. There's pockets of types of drag in London, from, Clapham to Central London to East London. And those attitudes, like Barb's approach to drag is something that I take. Sharon Legrand's approach to drag is something that I take in, and but also bag of chips who can just work a crowd, or you know, there's different approaches and how to be professional and how to show up. And Honey Fox is an icon, and I learned a lot from her in her poise and grace with people that approach her. And I think that's important to me, is how to be in drag in general, how to be a drag queen, rather than how to look. That I get online, if that makes sense. And also I get from me. I have a fashion degree, if it doesn't show, darling.
What's your favorite look that you've done in drag and why?
I did like my recent Face Card Never Declines naked look, because I used to hate my body, and I get a lot of comments on my body, on how skinny I am and how I'm an anorexic, I'm a drug addict, wink wink, and everything. And people feel the right to comment on a skinny person's body too much, actually, and that really annoys me, and that got to me. So I used to not enjoy my naked body, like find it quite dysphoric, right? And there has come a shift, something shifted in me, maybe meeting the dolls and being complimented, and a handful of people being uplifting towards me, and also realizing that I'm 31 on Monday, actually, and that this body is not going to last forever. That I have to embrace this. So this naked body, to me, this look that I did just recently, was something that was a culmination of, okay, drag was a tool that has given me this confidence. And this confidence is not to be taken for granted, you know? So that's a recent look that I love. But I love anything. I mean, I always look cunt. Skinny is not the standard of beauty, I don't think.
Yeah.
I did get a spray tan for that, and that was my first spray tan. She's still here. She looks dirty, but it's okay. The best 35 pounds I've ever spent.
It was totally worth it. Totally worth it. Talking about what is and isn't beautiful, obviously we've just had Fashion Month. Do you think Fashion Month trends influence drag makeup, or do you think drag exists in its own creative lane?
I think, first of all, London Fashion Week is dead. I think we need to stop with pooping collections. I think there's too much happening. I think we can just calm the fuck down. I don't need to see 90 looks from Chanel 5 times a year. So that's that. And also, a lot of people are showing on London Fashion Week are off schedule. So we need to get that clear. Not everyone is London Fashion Week. You're showing during the same weekend, but you're off schedule, sister. So let it be clear. Anywho's, I do think that fashion is getting, actually, lately, fashion has been influenced by Beyonce, because 2 years ago we had silver everywhere. Now we have cowboy everywhere. If you go into any high street, there's cowboy core. So mother is influencing the children, whether they like it or not. But I think that drag queens, nowadays, we take from fashion as much as we give. People say, oh, we were the trendsetters and the designers were taking from us. But I think it's an osmosis. Is that the fucking word? I think it's like goes both ways, that we take and we give. But I think the dolls, Black trans women specifically, will forever be the staple and the generators of trends. I think ballroom, that nucleus is still happening. That is where there is the birth of trends. And definitely Black trans women are at the forefront of trends, specifically, that we all steal from, really, or, you know, want to adopt and respect. I don't know how everyone approaches that. But yeah, I don't think we are, I mean, the London scene is giving to anyone, if that makes sense.
Drag them.
No, I mean, I'm not dragging. I'm saying no one. Sharon Legrand is giving to everyone, actually. She's great.
Fair, yeah. I also do think because drag has become more inverted commas mainstream because of Drag Race and stuff, that kind of the idea of drag being on the fringes and a lot of fashion designers taking inspiration from drag has kind of changed because it's so mainstream now. It's not seen as much of a muse anymore, as much as like you're saying. It's a two-way street, but also we see a lot of times.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like I'm watching Drag Race now, and no shade again, 21. And I'm just like, I've seen this. No one is exciting me because we're seeing so much of it, which I'm happy to have Drag Race every day, all year, many years, because football teams, there's many football competitions. We have to watch that. But I think that the pressure to put looks out and what I see, for instance, on the runway is no longer exciting me. On the runway of Drag Race is no longer exciting me. It takes a lot to excite me at this point because um, there needs there's an X factor that is missing from a lot of queens anywhere, and the X factor could be, you know, attention to detail, or could be the way you carry a garment or the construction of a garment. And I feel like a lot of them, specifically on Drag Race, don't have, yes, they have a say because they came up with the inspiration or whatever. But the fact that you outsource a garment so much, you just no longer are in it. I don't know. There's something that is I'm missing from Drag Race that is this rawness of looks. That's why Joella's mattress look for me was incredible. Because that was just, who cares? This is it. And people are scared to be themselves. I feel like, I don't know, that makes sense.
Cool, yeah. So this season we saw a mix of ultra minimalist makeup and too bold, extravagant makeup. Was there any trends that stood out to you from any of the fashion shows that have happened?
What I've seen, again, there's a lot of cowboy core, somehow. Cowboy core, baby. I think, again, I'm not excited by fashion. Fashion is boring me because I've studied fashion, but I'm getting more and more aware of the planet. And yes, I'm a consumer, but I think it starts from the top. And I'm just tired that this is how the world is going, and this overconsumption and capitalism and America and blah blah blah. So I'm just like not excited by this. So there was nothing, unless it's young queer designers that I always love. Kevin Garnier did this fashion show with La Grande Dame in France with haute couture. That was incredible. The whooshing, and you can tell there was a queer vision in it. So I just really like to see queers again. I want Galliano back at Dior. But the rest, I don't know. Nothing's exciting me, if I'm honest.
On that kind of line of you talking about the world that we're living in and overconsumption, many designers actually leaned into this kind of more like raw, undone kind of beauty looks on the runway, where like less is more kind of makeup. Almost in a sense of like an anti-makeup kind of statement. Do you think that kind of reflects where beauty potentially is heading, or do you think it's just a fleeting moment, another trend of like clean girl aesthetic?
No, I think everything happens in a socioeconomic environment and in history like that. So I feel like after 2020 and now we're entering recession and everything, and I think we are in a recession really, and we're entering a very fascist era. So I think the beauty will sort of go into that. Unfortunately, I feel like the trends will go into that. Where if you look at history, when there's times of restraint, I think beauty and trends are restrained as well. And then when there's outroar, you get the 20s, you get the 70s, you get and 80s. After all those 60s fascism and 70s, and in the 20s, I am no historian. That's me just thinking. So I'm thinking that this is where we're headed, with where you have to subdue who you are as a person because individuality is no longer celebrated. So I think that's what we're witnessing, a death of individuality, really.
Another strong thing that we saw on the runways was Y2K inspired makeup, thin brows, frosted shadow, glossy lips. A lot of it was done in maybe more of a modern twist rather than just those kind of things. Do you think this resurgence in nostalgia is fun, or do you think it's something that we should leave in the past?
No, I feel like we always go back. I'm just surprised it's happened so soon. As a 30-year-old woman, I am gagged that the early 2000s was 25 years ago. So that is just surprising to me. But in the 2000s, we were doing 80s, we were doing 70s. I think it's very cyclical. People are boring. People have no imagination. And also everything has been done. So I just think I'm just more surprised that it's already here. For me, 70s was still 30 years ago. But no, that was 55 years ago, sister. So I'm just in a different mindset. But I like going back. I think it's fun. It's fun to see the reinterpretation and see what stuck from the early 2000s. What are we taking? So that was the staple of the 2000s. If now this is what's happening now, this is what was defining the 2000s, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the little round belts and the little low waist and blah, 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 the big jeans, I think that is coming back. Is like, oh, so this was the through line in the 2000s. What we carry forward, I feel like, is just what's filtered through and what was actually the essence of that era.
Are there any things that you've seen that you wished wouldn't come back through, though?
I really don't want low rise. No, wait, do I want low rise? I want low rise. No, never mind. I want low rise. What do I don't want?
Do you want low rise on drag queens though?
If you have the body. But unless you're showing your balls that are tucked up, like Yara Sofia on Drag Race, she had her balls tucked up to her chin, and you could see the balls peeking through the low rise. But I can fuck with the low rise in drag. I guess what I don't want is the 2010s to be back, because those Tumblr era, skinny jeans, that was a bad era in fashion. The what's he called? The Jeffrey Campbell's shoes, those need to stay in the past. So early 2000s was camp. The kitten heel is back. I used to hate the kitten heel, love a kitten heel. So I think, no, I'm open. I think, yeah, I'm forever open, darling. Whatever comes my way.
Okay, and another thing that was a big focus on the runways this season was skin. Designers showcasing everything from ultra dewy, glassy complexions to intentionally matte powdered finishes. Do you think the era of heavy glam is over? And do you see this kind of aesthetic vibe trickling down into the drag world? You kind of said it earlier about that kind of like the no makeup, clean girl aesthetic being kind of prominent in the drag scene at the moment.
Yeah, we definitely are doing that. We are doing less. We are doing less is more. But some girls should continue to do more is more and should actually do more. But yeah, I think it's what I was saying earlier. I think, yes, we are being less. We're being more austere, being more, recession, more, don't flaunt, don't be happy, don't have happy makeup because it's a dark time approaching. So what I will say actually is challenge society. Wear your most outrageous, be your more outrageous self. And if a clean girl aesthetic is your thing, great. But also, spark it up with, provoking. I think provoking society is the way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think some girls really do try and do that clean girl aesthetic or just the super like blended kind of look. And I'm like, honey, you have a man face. You need to put on a lot of makeup to hide that man face that you are not, that makeup style just doesn't suit some girls' faces. And some girls just do not get that. And I'm like,
I think, like, for instance, I'll bring back Flesh. It looks like she's wearing not a lot of makeup, but she's doing a big makeup. She wears a lot of makeup, but it looks very like minimal, but it's not. And I see a lot of younger queens, which my advice to younger queens would be, don't buy a human hair until you get paid enough in drag to afford a human hair wig. Don't how do you say, break the bank. I think there needs to be this thing that you don't have to look like the girls that are in front of you. Yet allow yourself to have fun. Who are you? Are you just a middle part girl and with a straight hair? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Put on a pussycat wig, put on a hard front wig, put on a big wig. I think there needs to be experimentation and fun to find out who you are. The same way as an adolescent, you like go through phases. I think in drag there's this fear of looking ridiculous and of making mistakes. But I think if you created a character to be anything, just allow yourself to be anything. We're already boring in the day-to-day world, so allow drag to be that place where you can just have fun. And I feel like I try to do that. I try to be this. I try to be cunt. I try to be camp. And every time I get in drag, it's a new character. Who am I today? Who is she? And I think that is missing, especially with the younger audience watching us tonight. I think the most fun I have is when I'm in drag looking silly, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is camp. I'm just a character, darling, And that's, I think, what we need more of. Have fun, girls. Have fun doing drag. Drag is fun.
And going back to what you said earlier as well about like, kind of rebelling with your makeup and doing something a bit different. There was a few brands that we did see doing that. Margiela, Marc Jacob, all leaned into like more theatrical beauty. Do you find that's more interesting when fashion brands do that more theatrical makeup to go along with their clothing rather than just kind of doing something really minimalistic and boring?
I think the makeup is a complement to the outfit and to the tone of the collection. When you mentioned the Margiela, I'm assuming the one in the Paris, under the Paris Bridge, that Margiela has always no, not Margiela, Galliano has always done that, has always put the girls in drag. Mugler was doing that. Those are the faggots, baby. The faggots are doing that because the faggots are just out there to do it for us. But I feel like the makeup needs to complement the look, and I don't like a random. You'll see a lot of young designers just put on a feather in the lash just randomly, or like a thing just to look fashion. And I think you need to let someone in and design makeup for you, like they do with Pat McGrath, and Pat McGrath designs the look, and sort of who are you? And I feel like sometimes the makeup is actually what is not connecting everything. The makeup and the hair should connect everything together, and the styling is very important. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's what I'm missing, especially from young designers, is confidence in either less is more, or confidence in screaming. And if you're screaming, scream well. Like, don't just do, Tyra Banks fucking America's Next Top Model makeup, Am I a pessimist? Am I a pessimist?
No, I think
Am I a negative? Or I want more.
You're a fashion student who wants more and you want meaning behind what you're seeing. So a lot of brands also seem to use one of the makeup artists and one of the brands I know, like Terry Barber, spoke about this a lot in interviews, that are using makeup as a way to rebel against mainstream beauty norms, especially in this kind of society that we're living in now, whether it's social media and AI taking over and kind of telling us what we should and shouldn't do, or you have like dictators coming into power. Do you think that this kind of using makeup to almost go against beauty norms, which is obviously a lot of times people use makeup to go with beauty norms, is an interesting take to do on a runway? And do you think that that's something people should experiment more with?
I think it's actually, when you do that on the runway, you're taking from the tribes in society that we have. Again, the 70s, you had the punk and the emos and the club kids and makeup, and to this idea to, like Lee Bowery, for instance, to look grotesque in a way that is, again, to challenge and provoke society. So I think it's always been done by fashion. Takes a lot from the streets and what's happening in society. And I think doing that now and taking that into the runway makes sense with what we're experiencing around the world right now. So using makeup has always been a message, has always been a thing. And looking ugly or repugnant or grotesque is a lot of the times purposeful, because you want to get a reaction. You want people to awake. You want a reaction. Yes, you want commentary. So I think designers doing that is not only not new, but it makes sense that they would be doing that nowadays to sort of challenge the status quo, if that makes sense.
Nice. And last question. If you had to recreate any high fashion...
last questions, guys. Finally. Darling, pop the kettle on. Last one.
If you had to recreate any high fashion beauty moment from this past season or any others in drag, what would it be?
Forever and ever, Savage Beauty, the exhibition by Alexander McQueen that has changed my life. I will forever die one day to just be a McQueen creation. That was a genius. This is a man that I identify strongly with, and this guy holds my soul. And I think if I could ever do that, wear actually an actual garment of his. I have a dress from McQueen that I love, but that would be my dream, because I was just on Instagram and looking through that. That was such a formative exhibition and for me and time as a young queer person. This idea of ache, this idea of escapism, and his sadness was something that I identified with, his darkness. This idea of having nothing to lose and nothing to waste. I don't know, no time to waste. That what he would do was so genuinely provocative. It was not on purpose. It was not a show. It was who he was as a person. And I think that really translated, and that's why we love it, because it was so genuine, and that touched me so much as a young queer person. So for me, like Lady Gaga in that fucking McQueen armadillo shoes at the VMAs, I think it was, or maybe Grammys or whatever, with the fucking thing. That dress for me is like down in history as one of my favorites. So McQueen forever and ever. That is my GOAT. Yeah.
And well, that's about all we have time for today. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
And that's all we have time for this month. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to like it, leave a comment, a review, share it with your friends, share it online. The more you spread the word about the podcast, the better, the more listeners we get, and the more we can keep doing this and keep going. Really enjoying doing this podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And We will see you again next month. Bye.